it's Michael Garahan.
Yo, it's Brendan Mascherino.
Yo, Cam Crawford here.
Yo, it's Mason Coburn.
And we got a special guest today. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Braden. Braden Donnelly. I'm Moose fan.
Oh,
Thanks for coming on, sir.
All right, we got a sick lineup today, to say the least. First, does anyone have a story?
Shoot.
Great.
So wait, Moo, does your friend Braden, he attends NYU as well, right?
What?
Does your friend Braden go to NYU?
I did the summer camp, or they don't want us to call it the camp, but we did the summer program last year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell us a bit, just like about yourself, what you like to do, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm Braden. I met Moo at the NYU thing. I like to make movies. I think you guys kind of like movies. I don't know. And then I also play music every once in a while. Just started learning the bass.
Yo.
Oh.
Me.
Yeah. And then besides that, I'm just a senior in high school, vibing. Trying to survive quarantine. You know how it is.
Well,
Yeah.
that's on finishing up high school.
What was that?
Oh, I was just saying, like, congratulations with like senior year and whatnot.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm a high schooler in New Jersey.
Where in New Jersey?
Yeah, what's
North Jersey, middle of nowhere about.
Mhm.
Around there.
What's the plan for next year?
Next year, well, the plan at the moment is I'm going to Emerson College in Boston.
Oh.
Thank you.
Sweet.
That's awesome.
right?
Yeah. Braden here is a big cinephile.
Oh, yeah.
We like that.
We like to hear.
Are you, I guess as far as filmmaking, what do you like to do, like as far as making movies?
I like to make weird stuff. Usually, most of my stuff that I'm making recently has just been trying to experiment with the way that, like, I guess, with like less dialogue and more just visuals and stuff. That's what I've been into for recently.
That's pretty cool. Or do you kind of do everything as far as like directing, cinematography, and like sound? Like, is that just something that you like to cover all in one, or do you specialize in one thing?
I would say that the thing that I like doing most by far is directing. I like writing as well, but I'm learning a lot about cinematography since for a long time that was my weak point. But directing is definitely the thing I enjoy doing most.
Awesome. Sweet. Very cool.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Let's,
Lou.
shall we do our new little segment, if you will? So, to our listeners, the few that are listening, we thought let's gift you guys. You know, y'all hear about all the classics like your, I don't know, Citizen Kane's, or I mean, we're talking to a high school audience here, so your classics are like Wes Anderson and all that. So y'all heard about all that stuff, but let's introduce a segment where we recommend y'all something that we find very overlooked, something that you can discover, because not enough people talk about some movies, and it's good to take a peep, if you know what I mean. So would anyone like to begin?
I mean,
I vote Moo.
yeah, move on.
Oh, I mean,
Yes,
all right,
well,
let's. So I was looking through. There's a lot that I'd like to recommend, but for this week, I'm going with a doozy of a choice that no one would see coming. So there's a little film. It's a film with Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy. It's not like a fantastic film, but it's called Bowfinger. Highly recommended. It's, you know, Eddie Murphy's one of my favorite comedians, so I think he's a very funny guy. His performance in that movie is surprisingly excellent. Like, great performance. Plays two different characters, and without changing his physical features that much, he still conveys the characters in completely different ways. Amazing performance. The movie's hilarious. It's obviously very flawed, but it's a definite good time at the cinemas.
Awesome, Mo.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I got one if you guys want to hear.
Yo, is it Tron Legacy?
Oh, well, yes, it is Tron Legacy. No, but I mean, just add that on already. But I recently just watched this. I mentioned this to you guys earlier, but I watched the movie from 2011 called The Artist, and I've never heard of it ever until now. And I thought it was really, really good. And it's a silent film about making silent films. So like that alone was intriguing to me, just hearing about that. So I think it seems like overlooked to me because I'd never heard about it. I thought like I maybe would have seen some stills or like some kind of thing about it. But yeah, I think it's a really cool thing to watch, especially, I mean, just in terms of like classic cinema, and like it has a very like modern kind of clean look to it, but it's got the 4:3 black and white, and it's got that's the title cards for silent films. But I think it was really, really well done. So I'd recommend that. So yeah, The Artist.
Sweet.
Should we just go in like podcast order, I guess?
Yeah, sure.
Introduction order. I'll just hit him with this doozy. I grew up, I guess, watching this movie and also fell in love with it, I guess, because I played baseball and I thought it was hilarious. It's actually a comedy, and it's called Benchwarmers. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but it's so freaking hilarious, and I could watch it for days on repeat. And I think you guys should check it out. It's probably a terrible movie. I haven't watched it in years, but I remember like loving it and watching it so many times on like VHS or whatever, or the VCR, whatever the heck they're called, the big Johns.
One of them boys.
Nice.
Yeah. But it's got like Rob Schneider in it, and
Oh, jeez.
it's really funny. I think you guys should check it out.
Nice.
Great.
Also, please just watch Tron Legacy if you hadn't, even if it's just for the Daft Punk soundtrack. Just please, like, you need to just close your eyes. You it's a great.
Yeah, no, listen to the soundtrack. I'm not watching that movie though.
Come on.
So for me, there's this little movie that came out on Netflix called Bird Box.
Oh yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I'm just playing. So I actually had a tough CEO of the box. I had a tough time thinking of some. One that came to mind, I know Moo has seen this, I don't know about the others, Little Miss Sunshine. It's really freaking funny, and it's like a really powerful story. It's about this little girl that's kind of like body shamed from a young age, but she really wants to do beauty pageants and stuff, and the family drives across the country. It's pretty hilarious. But another one I thought of was, I've been preaching this movie for a while, Gattaca. Jude Law, Uma Thurman. It's about space and kind of like oppression in the future, but not like traditional oppression, more so like people who are genetically modified to be perfect versus normal born people. Kind of has similar feel to Minority Report in some aspects, but yeah.
All right, mine comes from 2018. I know I've told you guys to
Oh,
watch
I
it.
know what it.
Well, all right, Panos Cosmatos Mandy, starring Nick Cage. It's this very psychedelic sort of thriller horror type thing where Nick Cage has to avenge his wife after she's killed by this gang of these, LSD tripping cult members. It's crazy, and I love it. So,
Wow.
gotta recommend it.
Wait, Mason, can you say that title again?
Mandy.
Oh, okay. Got it. Awesome.
Raiden.
All right, so the one I thought of was a film from the mid-2000s by Ken Loach called Sweet 16. It is, Ken Loach is a director. He's been in it for decades and decades. He is really, his big focal point is he really loves making films about lower class people who are struggling in a system just that has no role for them. And Sweet 16 is no different, which is strange to me how he has films in his catalog that are really celebrated, like recently his film I, Daniel Blake won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. But no one really talks about Sweet 16, even though it's one of the best films in that in his filmography. It is a film about a boy in Scotland trying to get enough money so that way his mom, who's currently in prison, he and her can get a house when she gets out. It is an incredibly bleak world that he lives in, full of drugs, crime, Scottish people trying to speak English. It's basically a foreign language film, so you have to watch it with subtitles. But the big draw is not the bleakness of the world, but more so the youthful optimism that the main character brings to the screen. It's really engaging and really, really just an interesting movie to watch, and one of the best out of Ken Loach that I've seen. I definitely recommend people watch it.
Very cool.
Thank you, Brayden.
Love Ken Loach.
Speaking of subtitle, no.
All right. Has there been any news in the movie world that we want to cover today? I did hear that. Oh, wait a minute. What am I talking about? Of course. A little film star named Tom Cruise.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Is in talks with the big Elon about making a movie in fucking space.
Yeah. So my question is, okay, Tom Cruise has a lot of money and he probably has the power to make that happen, but he can't just ask Elon Musk to make the movie for him. Like, he can get him into space. Who the hell is he bringing up there as like a director, and who's like writing this?
Yeah, there's
Is
a
Tom
lot
Cruise writing it? Like,
It's a feature. That's the word I read. Feature. That's insane. Like,
a lot of stuff that's technically seemingly impossible about this endeavor.
it's either you're gonna have to teach astronauts how to be filmmakers, like, or you're gonna have to teach
filmmakers.
filmmakers to be astronauts. So it's like, which way you going?
Well, also, are we going to talk about Elon Musk's new son and his name?
Oh yeah. What's
Yeah,
up?
wait, what is his name? How do you pronounce it?
X-Ash Archangel 12 or something.
Yeah.
Isn't it a bunch of like characters or something? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw a meme about that. I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah, I mean, there it is. Yeah, you just put in the chat.
Also, so this is something I was thinking about, Moo, when you sent the Tom Cruise news. But does anyone else feel like it's a kind of ironic that Tom Cruise, someone who's like gone into the Church of Scientology type stuff, is approaching Elon Musk and NASA, like the faces of science, to do this like space thing? Probably overthinking it, but
His initiative, like who proposed this?
His
well, I know that NASA was like interested because they think that if a feature film was in the actual International Space Station, they think more of the youth would be interested in jobs in astronomy and whatnot. And then Tom Cruise is trying to cement himself as the greatest movie star on the planet.
Yeah.
Just hanging out of helicopters and planes just doesn't do it for him anymore. He
Exactly.
needs to go to space.
I saw, like, I guess one of the news segments on this scenario, and they were talking about Tom Cruise. They said he had to jump out of a plane like 100 and some times for like one
Halo
shot.
jump.
Video, yeah.
Yeah, just to get the one take. It's ridiculous.
Jeez.
He's in a
Tom
time.
Cruise is a great action star. Like
Yeah.
right below Jackie Chan. Actually, that's not true. In Hong Kong, there's like millions of stunt people that literally die on set. Mind-blowing shit. But I'll save that for when we choose a Jackie Chan movie to talk about.
Yeah.
But for American action stars, Tom Cruise is one of the most dedicated, hands down.
I was reading this book called Travels by Michael Crichton, who is the author of Jurassic Park and some other really tight science fiction books. And but this was a biography about his life experiences and stuff. And he was in the UK when he was a young guy, like directing a film starring Sean Connery, and talking about all the crazy stunts this guy did. Like 100 times he was on top of a train doing these action shots.
Wow. Yeah, but what studio is going to be willing to insure a movie like this? Like, the amount of waivers and shit they got to sign.
If Tom Cruise dies on his way to make this movie,
That's scary.
That could end a studio straight up.
yeah.
This is gonna be an A24 movie.
It better not. It better not end A24.
Someone fly Barry Jenkins up there. It'll be the most beautiful looking movie of all time.
Midnight 2 in space, dude.
Bring Safdie brothers up there.
Oh, don't even say that.
That shit could get too intense, man. Oh gosh, if you thought Damien Chazelle was doing close-ups in First Man, imagine what the Safdie brothers would do. You just see Tom Cruise's eye in the spaceship just shaking, and you're like, oh God, someone shoot me with adrenaline, car. Oh, I love the Safdie brothers.
True.
All right, this movie that we are going to discuss today actually has quite a bit of substance, so I think we can
Yeah, I was gonna say
dive right into it.
Let's just dive in, yeah.
I have a lot of stuff to ask / talk about. So
Yeah, so this is a film from 2018 by Lee Chang-dong. I'm not even going to try pronouncing it like a correct speaker would, but it's Burning, and I think it's fantastic. I want to hear what y'all thought about it.
Braden, do you want to give some input?
Yeah, so Burning is one of my favorite films of all time. It's probably the one I'd pick for movie of the decade from the 2010s. It is an excellent psychological thriller about a. Are we talking spoilers? By the way?
Oh yeah, we
Okay.
all. Yeah. Full spoilers.
All right, just making sure.
Yeah.
It's about a guy who meets a girl from his childhood. She goes to Africa for a little bit, then comes back with with Stephen Yeun, who plays a man named Ben. Ben kind of intrudes in their relationship, and one night while smoking a blunt, Ben confesses to the main guy that he has a hobby of burning down greenhouses every couple of months. And then the next night, and then the next day, the girl that he met is just gone. And so for the rest of the film, it's just he's trying to figure out what happened to her, and more importantly, did Ben kill her? And I think that's such an interesting premise. It's based off of a short story by Haruki Murakami, who is a Japanese writer. He wrote it in the early 90s. And he basically, Lee Chang-dong just kind of took this 13-page short story and made it into this 2.5-hour long film. The original short story, I can't speak, short story is set in Tokyo. He moved it to Seoul and the outskirts of Seoul as to reflect the current socioeconomic issues currently plaguing Korea. And I think that's such an interesting thing to do and so impactful considering what he ultimately created with it.
Yeah.
that's really neat. I didn't know that that was a short story, and it's really cool to think that he tied like the politics into it and brought like real world scenarios into a story to make it, I guess, more up to date than when it was written a few decades ago. I loved how the film came together, and I thought it was slow paced personally, but I kind of liked how that felt. And I thought the cinematography was beautiful personally. And I thought the whole like cat situation, I thought that was done very well. How he didn't see the cat, he saw the litter box, and he was feeding it every day. And he's like, okay, the food's not there when I come back, so where's this cat? And I can't find it in this one-room apartment. It's like, what's going on? There's mystery the whole entire way throughout the whole film, and the mystery never really resolves at all. And he just kills this guy that he's like, he doesn't know what to do, and he's just all caught up in this one girl, and he eventually just kind of breaks, and then nothing else happens. You're kind of just left like feeling uneasy, and not many films do that, and I really appreciate what they went for with I guess trying to reach an audience who can appreciate that side of storytelling.
Yeah. So, Brendan, I fully agree about the pacing, especially, and it definitely was a slower paced movie. Like, especially compared to Heat, we just watched, like, talked about last week. Like, they're very, very different styles, but I thought the cinematography was amazing. Lots of looks like great use of natural light, and if not, I couldn't tell. It all looked really, really beautiful to me. I love the use of the sky as well, especially like the silhouette kind of stuff that was going on, especially in terms of cinematography. Still, the use of focus I really love too. Like, you guys remember this one shot. I think he's on. I forget if he's on the phone or not, but it's like when the main character is just like standing, and then it just racks focus like the background for a solid, like, I say, like 7 seconds, and then he just walks away. And like I just like really kind of like it just makes you feel even more uneasy. Like you don't see that kind of stuff, like, especially with your own eyes. So I definitely had a bunch of questions at the end too, like what the heck did he kill like Jaime, or like what, like what's going on? But I definitely liked how it's just this slow burn, if you will, with the film, and also like just the use of the props for like kind of those clues, like Brendan was talking about the mystery throughout, and how like they started off with the watch, and then the watch is what ends up like kind of setting off. It ends up kind of serving as a climax. It almost seems like at the end. So I thought that was really cool. Also, I really like the main character, like the way he behaves. It's very odd. He doesn't even talk that much, but to me, it's very interesting watching him. Especially like there's a lot of times where like Ben would say stuff to him like, "Hey, like, how did you find him so fast?" And he just doesn't say anything. And like it's just neat to me seeing that kind of interaction, because I mean, as right now, I'm talking a bunch, and I'm used to hearing a bunch of people talk, and like so it's interesting like seeing how he behaves, and like how he would just kind of dismiss stuff, and just even when he kills the dude, it's like super just almost nonchalant in a sense, where he just kills him, takes all his clothes off, and just drives away. And it's like, whoa, like doesn't even say a single word to him. So I really, really did enjoy it though. So yeah.
So as these guys are saying, my first watch, I was a little disappointed, but then this time I actually found I found new appreciation for the ambiguity. But I also, as you guys were saying, I noticed the cinematography a lot more this round, but also I really like the score. I gotta say, like some of these like scenes, I was like, damn, like especially when he's trailing the Lamborghini, that was like great. I was like, ooh, this is really hitting. Also, I found the sound design, especially just like the ambient like wind and the rustling through the trees. I don't know, I thought it was great. And I realized that the reason I didn't like it the first time as much, I still liked it, but I was a little disappointed because, okay, you have so many questions at the end. I just want to know more, but then also it's what makes it so thought provoking. So I liked it a lot more on the second watch.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Cool. For me, you guys touched on a lot of it already. The cinematography was awesome, and honestly, I think my favorite part of the movie was it opens with a tracking shot, and I don't know why, but that was just really sick. But yeah, the use of the sky, that was really nice and pretty, and just seeing like the Korean countryside was beautiful. I thought the character who played Ben was an amazing actor. He was really good, added a lot to that psychological aspect. My issue with the film was not that it was slow paced, but I had a bit of a tough time with the direction of like where the film was headed, just in the sense that the exposition was very long, which is fine, but I wasn't sure, like, I don't know, like at first I thought it was going to be about him and the girl, hey me, or you know, but then all of a sudden after like 40 minutes she leaves, and then she comes back, this dude, and you don't really know, like, is he in a relationship with her, like what's the deal with them, and then she disappears, and you're like, there's an hour left in the movie or so, and you're like, wait, so this is about burning greenhouses now? Kind of threw me off. And I don't know, I wasn't fully invested in some of the main characters' issues, like the court case going on with his father and whatnot. But I don't know. All that being said, there were a lot of aspects of the movie that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I absolutely adored this film. I think it's absolutely masterful. Like, I love Lee Chang-dong's direction. I think that he's a really like one of the best filmmakers working today, hands down. Like I love how he employs this type of style where it's very formal and a lot of how beautiful everything is presented and how cinematic it looks, but at the same time, it has like this slight hint of naturalism to it. Like it's not full blast like I'm gonna make like a documentary looking movie, but at the same time, it's not like full blast. I'm gonna lock this down on a tripod and do everything shot reverse. He has a very, very cool blend of both styles, and I always appreciate that in both this film and Secret Sunshine. Um, I just love how this movie, how everything reveals itself. Like the setups and payoffs are so freaking satisfying. That when you get that insert of the watch at the end, it's like it just shows how the setup is so powerful in the sense that with just one insert, you're like, oh shit, cuz like
Yeah.
that's always I love when an insert can make you feel like, damn, that's when you know the setup was really strong. And yeah, just everything about the act, Steven Yeun's performance, like get out of town, get out of town. That guy's performance is unbelievable. I love what it's very cool to see this movie compared to something like Parasite, how two wildly different films tackle the whole idea of social class and social divides because it's in such a different way, but both are equally effective. Like when you're watching this movie, they just like drop you in two completely different environments, even though it's same general location. When you're in like Steven Yeun's house, you're like, damn. But then the movie opens up in that like little small district where they have the corner stores and all that, and just like that visual contrast is very powerful throughout the entire film.
There's a line actually about that that the main character says. It's a simple line. It's easy to miss, but when he's referring to Ben, comparing him to The Great Gatsby, he says the line, "There are a lot of Gatsbys in Korea." And just to oversimplify decades of Korean history, South Korea post-Korean War was super poor, but then the country rapidly industrialized, and so people who were on that first wave ended up getting a lot of money really quickly, and so the gap between those who weren't able to make that money and those who were just began to increase over time until now it's a country with one of the biggest wealth gaps between the lower class and the higher class in the world. And so his line of "there are a lot of people who are just rich and mysteriously rich like the Great Gatsby" is really reflective of the film's overall commentary on the socioeconomic divide of the Korean working class and upper class.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yo, Mason, when you said the score, like when I was watching it, I heard like all the percussive moments that I guess happened mostly at the at what's his name's house, at the main character, I forget his name, at his house. There was like a lot of this like jazzy Latin, very slow, almost like a doom jazz throughout all of that stuff, and I loved that so much. I also really enjoyed when I guess they were both like smoking outside, and she comes out and like just takes her shirt off, but there's like this trumpet playing in the background. It's like this crazy trumpet solo. Oh my gosh, I need to just go find the score and listen to that because I love that so much.
Yeah, so that trumpet solo, that's actually the score from, remember I told you about that film Elevator to the Gallows? That's
Yeah.
scored by Miles Davis. Yeah, that's a track from that movie that they used in that scene.
Wow. That's
Beautiful.
Is it? I haven't seen Elevator to the Gallows. Have you, Mo? Or
Yes.
anyone else? Is it like used in like a similar way in that film, that track?
There's like a extended scene where this woman is like walking through a city, and that's when it's used, and
That's fairly similar, I guess.
it creates like that similar sort of vibe, but I think it's better used in Burning, to be honest. Like,
Wow.
that scene is that's my favorite scene in the whole movie, hands down. Like,
Mhm.
it's just just the feeling that you get from that scene and how they end with the camera pointing towards that North Korea divide is just so powerful.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that you can actually hear the propaganda like from the other side. Like when he said that, I was like, no way. But it makes so much sense, and it's so crazy. And I was also caught off guard because I didn't look to see what like I couldn't really tell what time period this movie was.
Yeah.
I thought it was like early 2000s, like 2004 or so. But and then I saw Trump on the TV, and I was like, dang, this is like recent. And it's just shocking to me to think that it's like that over there now.
Yeah, I remember I was shocked when I heard his voice, and I was like, quickly like checked the date of the movie. I was like, wait, what? I was like, either they on some like crazy
Simpsons, yeah.
stuff right now, and this is from like 2012, or like I just you know what I'm saying, like that's what I thought at first, and then I saw it was like 2018. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Did anyone notice that Ben's character low key looks like Elon Musk? Dude, first of all, when you said Elon Musk at the beginning of the podcast, I was like, I have to talk about that because the whole entire movie, I was like, how does he look so much like him? Look up a photo of him right now. Them side by side. They look so similar.
Stephen Yeun.
Yes. Yes. They do. I'm telling you.
But let's talk a little more about Stephen Yeun because you can't praise his performance enough. It is shockingly good. Just his small reactions.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Sorry to cut you off, but dude, his like I didn't even notice this in the first watch, but like in so many of the conversations, like Jung-soo will look over at him and like he'll just notice that he's just totally not into it. It's just all a farce. And it's like you see these little subtle details where he's just, you know, he'll look off and he's just like not, he's just doing it for show, it seems like, and it was really impressive.
Come on, Elon Musk.
Oh yeah.
Bro, what?
I'm telling you, it does.
I'd say I looked up a photo of Elon Musk, and I agree it's a little bit like in like the I don't know.
I did not see it at all.
Oh, but dude, Mason, I fully agree, especially like the initial like dinner party scene when she's doing the dance, and then it goes to that shot of him, and he does that little look. It's like with his mouth where he kind of smirks, and he just like shakes his head like 1 degree almost. It's like a quarter of a degree to like the side, but it's like almost this little kind of like, what is she doing? Like she's like, this is so stupid, but it's like so subtle, like this kind of little disconnect, like it's crazy.
And it adds so much tension because, you know, he spends so much time with her, but he clearly doesn't actually enjoy her company. And it's like, what?
Yeah. Wait, can I ask, like, do you guys know anything deeper? Like, is there anything, like, kind of, did the director leak anything about, like, what really goes down with all those girls' bracelets and stuff? Like, what does he do with them?
Serial killer? Yes.
Is that what it is? Or is it, like, do you guys know anything about it? It's just supposed to be like mystery? Like I'm wondering if they.
Sorry. I think that my interpretation. I don't know if the director's commented on it. I assume he hasn't. But the whole thing with you never fully find out why, or rather, if Ben really killed all those girls, is that the film is meant to be indicative of Korean working class anxieties. So the main character Jung-soo, and therefore you being kept out of the ultimate truth of whether he is responsible for their deaths or not, is totally purposeful as to represent how this large population of Korean society is completely left out of this of the minority yet rich population's ultimate, like they are in like two separate worlds effectively.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what I've interpreted from that decision.
Yeah. It definitely feels also, I remember a few lines like he definitely has that kind of higher superior, like that attitude when when they're like smoking, and he's like, he's like, yeah, like greenhouses it's like, isn't that illegal? And he's like, yeah, and so is what we're doing right now. And then that point, it's like definitely feels like he's it's like above the law kind of thing.
Mhm.
You start thinking about like, oh shoot, like it's like he's able to do these crazy like things, with these taking these women. It's like it probably doesn't matter, to him at all in terms of like legality either. So
Exactly. He can get away with everything from murder to arson to even just something simple like smoking a blunt. Meanwhile, the main character, there's a part where he's in one the upper neighborhoods of Seoul, and he goes to just light a cigarette, and the cops are like looking at him, like he's not doing anything wrong, but the cops are like they have their eye on him. They don't trust him just because of where he's from.
Yeah, and going off the whole like social class thing, one of the things I noticed on this rewatch was how freaking good the costume design was, because like I wasn't paying attention to the costume design the first time, but like it's very subtle in how they differentiate the classes with just costumes alone, because like some movies would just be like, all right, let's give the poor class super raggedy clothes and then the rich guys super nice clothes. But this was like really subtle, and like the shirt is like, it's not like a bad shirt, but the way that it has like wrinkles, you can tell it's not very ironed, and just the way he presents himself isn't as formal as, but Steven Yeun's just wearing like a casual gray sweater and some shorts, but it feels super clean. Just looking at it, the color like somehow pops more, even though it's just a gray shade. Like, I don't know how they did it, but it's
yeah, it even seems like that girl, like I don't even want to try to say her name, but like it seems like even when they go and they're all in that little kind of like coffee shop, like when he meets them, they kind of meet together all three for the first time, like she's even dressed up kind of nice, and it seems like almost like maybe he would have bought those clothes for her or something like that. It seems like, I don't know what her like, oh no, she's living in that little like apartment thing, so I guess like it just seems like that was almost him like rubbing off on her too, because like remember, it just all of a sudden it just seemed like she was wearing like kind of really nice clothes when then she was like with him.
yeah,
So,
her costume design, it feels like she's very, her character is very conflicted the whole time. Like, I think her character is excellently written, but like, I don't know, her costume sort of like, it doesn't feel very high end. Like, you can tell she presents herself nicely, but that's also one of the themes of the movie is like, what the?
oh my God. Yeah,
One of the themes in the movie is like the whole idea of like toxic masculinity and stuff, and it seems like her costume design is almost in a way showing that like she almost presents herself nicer than she has to, because you can't like survive in culture in general as a woman unless you dress nice like that, and I think that's sort of where her costume design lies.
Come on, you're not gonna tell me they don't look alike.
You know what? When you just described it, just thinking of their faces, I wasn't convinced just thinking about their faces, but now that I look at them side by side, I can confirm that I'm definitely not convinced.
I agree.
Yeah, there's not one thing you can tell me
Oh,
that's
their cheekbones are like kind of similar.
no,
maybe.
they're not though. Look at how what
I don't know, bro. Like,
Alright, I'm sorry. Jeez. No, it's probably only like one like angle of his face that I thought it, but I don't know. I've only seen Elon Musk like 2 times.
Yeah. The casting of like Steven Yeun in the film itself, like beyond his performance, because his performance, man made a yawn unnerving as hell. Like, man's talented, but beyond that, the actual casting of the performance is really genius, because the character Ben, for one, his name is Ben, which is not Korean at all. He completely intrudes upon Jong-soo's life. And so they cast an actor who is, he was born in Korea, but he was raised in the United States, Steven Yeun. So he has a different accent than them. He's from a different background entirely. I assume that most Korean people aren't, rather the Korean public aren't going to immediately recognize Steven Yeun. Even though he's fairly popular in the United States because of The Walking Dead, among other projects. So we have this person who is raised in a completely different place, who's now in this film from an entirely different country. is now it immediately, like, those who recognize him or those who don't recognize him immediately have that thought in their mind, like, this guy, there's something off about this guy compared to the other guys. And that's also capitalized on the fact that his character's accent, from what I've been told by people who speak Korean, because I can't tell at all, is that his accent is a little bit different than the others. And also, of course, as I mentioned, his name is from has a completely different origin. Jong-soo, Kim Hee, and then Ben. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's cool. Very neat.
Oh man. I want to quickly talk about a few scenes. For one, we'll get to the ending at the end because there's just too much to talk about there. And then I remember there was one scene that just like was so mind-blowingly beautiful to me and like haunting, and it's the scene where he has that like dream of the burning greenhouse, and like the way the sound cuts out, and oh my gosh, just
Silence, right?
cinematography in that scene
That's
and
so
sound design is just pure bliss, if you will.
yeah. I really dug that, how they just went like mute. Also, is that supposed to be just like a flashback, or is this a dream of like him as a child? Because it kind of looked like him, not gonna lie. Like it seemed like they would have picked him based on his features, but I mean, I thought that scene was really powerful, and especially just like how they open with like just his the face, and then with that like flickering lighting, it looked like welding mode on the sky panel of Brendan. But it's like
Yeah,
it's just like really, really powerful. And then like when they had it like in slow motion, it's just like you don't hear any of the sound, but you just see the black frames and oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, because it came after the story about how he had to burn his mother's clothing, right? So I thought
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
not that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Maybe
felt
like, you know how dreams and like I guess real life and like past events can kind of work their way together. Maybe it was something like those things all coming together in his mind, and almost him like seeing parallel with Ben and his mother's burning clothes.
Yeah, I read an essay about this a little while ago, about an interpretation that Jung-soo sees Kim Hee as like a motherly figure since he doesn't have one, and similar to how his father chased away his mother, he sees now that Ben has chased away or even murdered his new motherly figure, to just add more layers on top of that as well, to add more to the hatred that Jong-soo feels for Ben, and why he ultimately concludes that Ben is likely the culprit of Kim Hee's disappearance.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I agree with that interpretation, but it's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, for sure.
My favorite scene probably has to be the one with when he's trying to find Ben, I guess, and try and like to spy on him almost, and they're like stuck in traffic, and he sees the Porsche all the way up there, and he's all the way behind in his truck, and all of a sudden the traffic starts creeping closer to him, and he's like, shit, what do I do now? And they're just like right next to each other. I love the cut. He's just like kind of like sitting straight up in his seat, like trying not to make eye contact with him, but he's also trying to see if he like is looking at him. It was just funny. It was like, that's like a classic moment, and he pulls off, and I was like, wow, that's awesome.
And right after that, the whole like in the dirt roads and stuff, dude, that whole encounter. I said Lamborghini, I meant the Porsche, but yeah, that was like, I don't know, Moo was talking about earlier, like sort of almost documentary feeling footage, like the dash cam stuff. Like I don't know, it was really cool.
Yeah.
And then also, I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Right after that, when he, comes up to him and Ben's just looking out over the water. What do we think that is? What do you think the point of that is?
I have watched this film a number of times, and that is the scene that continues to perplex me. That is, it is. I will literally I rewatch this film with that scene in mind sometimes, and just try to figure out what's going on. I don't want to read any interpretations of what's happening, just because I wanna kind of figure it out for myself, and I've yet to be able to do it. But the feeling that scene I can't. It's pretty ineffable. I can't really put it into words, but the feeling that just that scene instills in me, just watching it, is just so mind blowing and impactful. I don't know what the scene means literally for the narrative, but I can say that just it's a scene that you just kind of feel. At least that's the experience that I've had with it thus far.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing about the feeling because yeah, I have no idea what's like happening from a literal sense, but like when that camera just slowly starts pushing in, I don't know what happens, but I just get goosebumps. It's something so like eerie about it. Like there's something so mysterious, and I love that mystery. It's just, oh, it feels so good.
It's like,
Uh,
oh, Chekhov, you
oh,
take
my
it.
bad. I love that shot when he's looking out over the water, and it's a wide shot of it's Ben, Car, Jong, Soo, and then the entire right side is just like this beautiful shot.
Yeah, I think it's the one thing that I guess opened my eyes after you told us, Braden, that it was based off of like this short story. I guess in the past, Michael, Moo, and I, and maybe even like Mason, we've had experience like taking stories and kind of turning them into films and even like short stories. Sometimes a lot of things can be just left up to interpretation, and you can kind of carry it in whatever direction you want it to, but maybe that was like a part of the short story that they felt that it was necessary to put in, and maybe just in context of the film that didn't necessarily make sense, but if you read the short story it might, who knows. But maybe there's a lot of, I think there are a lot of things within the film that don't really have a whole lot of definition, but probably make a lot more sense after reading the literature that's
Yeah.
behind everything.
That's a good point. And I even like thinking about the short story thing, like the fact that there's so much at least kind of left unanswered in terms of detail wise, it makes you kind of think like how maybe true they could have stuck to the original. I don't know if you read it, Braden, or not, like a translation of it or anything, but it seems like in my guess they probably would have stuck to like that kind of vagueness that would come from a short, like kind of a psychological, short story. Especially with it just being kind of slow paced. It almost seems like they took like, like 10 pages and just went like put it into like 100 or 200 with the screenplay. But
Yeah, I actually have read the short story, not recently. It's only 13 pages
yeah.
on like the PDF I found online, and it ends at Ben telling the main character I don't think he's named in the original story, but he tells the main character about the barn burning, and then the next day, he finds out that Kim Hee's missing, or at least that story's version of Kim Hee. And then it ends with just him saying that he jogs by the greenhouses every day, and he is still yet to find the one that Ben claims he burned down.
Wow.
So, that's how the story ends. So there's not even that whole thing about him being suspicious
Wow.
Wow.
that was entirely added by Lee Chang-dong,
Yeah, that's
and including the ending, like the ending of the film.
yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's interesting so the original story is called Barn Burning, and the main character of the film references that his favorite author is Faulkner. And what I found interesting was, while searching for the PDF the first time, is that there is actually a Faulkner short story also called Barn Burning. I've not read that one. I don't know if there are any links, but I think it's interesting that thread connects. But what I did notice I think it was like 2 watches ago was the first time I noticed it, was that the film kind of feels like it could have been written by Faulkner. I've not read much of his work, but has anyone here read Rose for Emily by Faulkner? All right. Well, basically, Rose for Emily is about a 7-page short story about a woman named Emily who lives in a place in the South that's going under rapid industrialization and modernization, and she is effectively a relic of this old time. Her family was once a proud family that's now just diminished to just her. She's the only living member, and she just hides herself away in her house, rejecting like the reality that now surrounds her, that that the South that is now is completely different than the South that she was raised on. And you see this, you are told this story. It starts with Emily's funeral, and then her neighbor recounts like the weird things that happened over decades of just Emily being a shut-in. And so you never get to really figure out like what's up with Emily. Like you are completely left out of Emily's life until the end, where there is something revealed. I don't want to spoil it, but it is such a it is so intriguing, and while it doesn't wrap up the mystery of Emily's life, it unveils one thing that opens up many other questions to be asked. And that's a similar thing that Burning does, where you're never revealed completely into Ben's life, but you were able to get like little glimpses and are able to kind of create your own conclusions, just as Jung-Soo does.
Braden, now that you say that, I have read it. I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh, man. Okay, that's a very good point. Oof. You guys read it. It's pretty short, but it's good.
Yeah.
If I remember it, kind of based on what you're saying, Braden, isn't that where the perspective of the story is kind of from the community, and they're talking about what Emily up to, that kind of thing?
Yeah. That's exactly what it had, the format.
What was it? Roses for Emily? What was
it?
A
Rose for Emily.
Oh, a rose. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's super short. Yeah, like only a few pages, but it is very, very interesting. Cool. Especially reading it and watching Burning like around similar times. You can see where that Lee Chong-dong definitely like read that story a lot.
Yeah, the scenes with like them talking about the well and stuff, I just love how he just opens mysteries and just like leaves them at that. Like he opens them for the audience to think about, but he doesn't need to answer it, and that's awesome.
Yeah. It's like what Kim Hee says at the beginning about pantomiming. It's not about pretending that there's something there, it's that forgetting that there's something out there in the first place.
Yeah. That's what a cool like motif, honestly, to have throughout. That was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And then even when he goes back like to the class, isn't that like didn't he go to like her class for that thing or whatever? I don't know what that was. Maybe it was just like a random dance class, but I remember like he asked that guy, he's like, "Where is she?" Like the teacher or whatever.
Yeah, the dance. Oh, man. That scene, I can't get over how good it is.
Do you guys know, I couldn't figure out what they were doing, but when they were smoking outside together, they would like spit in these cups. Do you know why they did that?
Oh, like in the beginning, you mean, when they first meet up?
Yeah, I've just never have seen that before. I didn't know if it was like a thing that they do, because I don't know.
That's a good question. I do not know an answer.
Yeah, I have no idea.
And they only do it like one time, so it's like kind of weird.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. What, Cam?
Maybe the mysteries are in that cup.
Yeah.
We have to figure out what it means.
I think they said chewing tobacco. That's the only thing I can think of. They would spit.
Yeah. I was like, I've seen people spit, with like chewing tobacco, but cigarettes, I don't know. Maybe they don't like the taste of them.
There's a scene that we have not mentioned that I'm surprised it has come so long that we have not mentioned it, but what did we think about the whacking off to the light reflection?
Yeah.
So
I guess that was just maybe a form of because just him like missing her and like the memory. I don't know. Yeah.
dude, like on a rewatch, like you see, when he initially enters the apartment, like you see like it frames with like the towers in the back, and like that's gotta be intentional, because like it's so clear. You're like, oh, your eye is drawn to those towers.
Wow.
And then, after you've seen it, it's like, oh, that's it.
You can.
What would you guys know why? Is there like actually reasons why? Like he does that. Like
I think he like saw a picture of her, because it does. There's like an
he definitely sees a picture
of her. I think it's literally just relating to that and remembering like what they did.
Well, I was thinking that like, so when they go in the apartment, she like talks about, she's like, oh, you get this view and like you can even see the reflection of the light off the thing. And I thought like her saying that like gave it the significance that it's like an upper class style of phenomena that happens in her little apartment. So just like the idea of attaining an upper class light is what he's fantasizing about, and they show that through masturbation.
Yeah.
about it.
That's cool. You learn every rewatch. I've watched this film a number of times. Every time, like new stuff like that is just. I learn new stuff like that, and even just talking about it, like there's so much to this film. So many layers.
Also, like the scene when they're laying, so she goes missing, and then they're laying together like in her apartment. Is that like supposed to be all like made up in his head, or is he actually there? I remember being kind of confused about that. I don't know if you guys know. There's like if there's anything concrete about that.
Oh,
Like, when they're laying together. It's like after she's gone.
She's in his head, like
Yeah, that's
not actually there.
But also, did he go to her apartment and lay alone though, and imagine that, or is it all in his head? That's what I was wondering, because I saw like maybe he was able to get in the one time with the lady. So I was like, maybe he went there and just like, but I don't know if that was like off limits, like he can't go back. But I remember just thinking like, is that actually real at all, or is he completely like imagining? I don't know. So
I think my interpretation of that is just like the pantomiming thing again, where he probably does go back to the bed, and it's just a matter of he just forgets that she's not there, and so he has that sort of intimate moment with her. That's what I think, anyways.
Very cool.
There's a filmmaker, director of Florida Project, Sean Baker, and he has a Letterboxd, and I like reading his reviews, and he loved this movie like he's supposed to. But he put on a thing that I usually, every single time he says it, I agree with, when he's like, this movie should have been shot on film, not digital. And pretty much 100% of the time, I agree with it. You know what? I actually think this movie benefits from being shot on digital, which is shocking, but I'm not going to lie. There's something about the look of this movie that actually works as a digitally shot film rather than being shot on 35 millimeter or something.
Yeah.
A lot of it maybe had to do with how often they shot in low light conditions. I don't know. They just wanted to preserve that and not have it be, I guess, as like grainy.
Yeah. No, I don't think you get the crazy jazz dance scene on film.
Yeah, it probably just looked way too, grainy.
Yeah, I agree. I actually did enjoy the look a lot. And I found myself even sometimes questioning, like I was like, there's nothing really that stands out necessarily. I feel like that's digital to me. Like I kind of was definitely, I knew I was digital, but like it wasn't something where like some other movies where I'm like, oh God, like this is like disgusting. But I think I even noticed at one point that kind of got me. I was like, I think there was a shot, like kind of a silhouette type thing, but I remember like the low like blue tones like had like some kind of noise in it, and like a little bit of like some kind of noise like that. It looked like, and I remember that kind of fooled me for a second. I was like, yo, is that like film grain or something? But I think it was just like maybe just
it was probably some
I was kind of like tripping out. I don't even know, but like so
ISO.
yeah, exactly. I think it might have just been like just in camera like that or something. But I remember at one point I was like, that kind of spooked me because like just the one shot looked like it was possibly film grain, but then the other side I was like, nah. But yeah, I think it looks really good though.
Nah.
Yeah, nah.
Do we want to add anything? Oh wait, let's talk about that final scene real quick, because dude, the oneer that they pull off is insane. Like an effects standpoint, just the choreography, everything, mind blowing, jaw dropping, spectacular, everything in between.
It was very natural.
Yeah, it was smooth.
Just such a powerful ending. It's the only like super violent moment in the film, and it works so well. It's immediately like, I don't know about you guys, but just like seeing, like when I first watched the film, like seeing like him like stab was so jarring and like just so eye catching. It just immediately like that cemented the scene in my heart, and then it keeps going with him like taking out the clothes and burning them. It's like just the ultimate moment of it's again going back to the pantomiming thing. He's completely forgotten that there is even a chance that that he hasn't killed Kim Hee and the other girls. He completely forgets that that's just something that he might think. He at this point he's convinced at this point, most of the audience is convinced, and so he takes action into his own hands and does that and properly ends him. And it's such just going back to Stephen Yeun's acting. Oh my goodness,
Dude,
the way his eyes look.
Yeah.
Oh, holy moly!
Heck.
Mm-hmm.
Insanely good performance. Just like his whole facial expression, like, is weird because it's like this blend of like he knew this was coming, but at the same time he's feeling that crazy pain that you probably feel if you get stabbed. Like,
Yeah.
Probably.
And there's an interesting someone, I didn't even think about this. I was looking online after like the first or second time I saw this movie, like to see if to see just any hints for the argument that he didn't actually kill Kim Hee, because the film overwhelmingly, at least to the audience, it seems like, oh, there's evidence to suggest that of course he killed Kim Hee. And of course that's also the case with Jung Soo, but someone online pointed out that why would Ben agree to meet up with Jung Soo in this remote location under the guise that he was going to meet Kim Hee, because Ben, when he gets there, he's like, "Hey Jung Soo, where's Kim Hee? You said she was going to be here. Why would he go if he already knew that she was dead?" Like that's just an interesting moment where you never really know the mysteries of this film. Yeah. You only know, the only thing that you know is a matter of you know why he would do it and why he wouldn't do it, and the evidence for him doing it and the evidence for him not doing, and you're just left to make your own conclusions and just believe whatever truth you want. And and it pulls it off so well, and better than I think I've not seen many films try to like leave such blatant mysteries open-ended like that, but it's definitely the best case of leaving such a incredible mystery open I think I've ever seen put to film.
Well said. Well said.
wow. Yeah. It's satisfying in the sense that like something happens, like, because like sometimes it's a bit unsatisfying when there's no resolution, but like an action has been taken for what the character thinks is a resolution, but the audience has no idea whether or not he did it. So you get the satisfaction of having like an action for a conclusion, but you also get that ambiguity that keeps your mind thinking for like days on end after it's over.
I had a lot of like Inside Llewyn Davis vibes from this movie for some reason. I guess maybe it was because, well, there was a cat in the movie. I guess the colors of the whole film kind of looked similar, just like the cooler tones in most of the parts. And also, most likely, just like the lower class theme throughout that, because he's also just poor, trying to like make it through life. There's not many characters that are brought in, but there are a few, like his, I guess, girl that he hangs around with. I don't really want to touch in that movie too much, but I just got a lot of vibes from those two movies that I thought were relatively similar.
Yeah, and also like Moo, when you mentioned the one take for the end, like the whole movie's like filled with those. Beautiful. Even the scene with like when she's dancing, like that thing's like all straight up one take. And even like also like go back to, I mean, I don't think it's as long even as other ones, but like when they're in the club, when they first kind of all the three of them kind of meet up, like that shot was actually so dope. Like that series of shots with like, I remember first it pushes through and like, but it's neat because like it's not clear. I guess they use just like maybe kind of a tighter lens that could kind of hide it, but it's not clear that anyone's like the blocking is set up at all. Like it just literally looks like the camera, it felt like it's just like pushing through. So I thought that was pretty neat. Like it didn't look like they had set up the blocking so people would like dance out of the way when it comes by. Like it just looked like, and I was just wondering like, how are they not moving out of the way? Like it looks so clean right now. And it was cool just how it then landed on him at the end. So, but I remember just being filled with like those one takes and also just beautiful pans and like camera work, honestly, too. Like I was very drawn to that. And how like, I remember sometimes it would have those pans you think like, oh, it's definitely locked down on a tripod. And then all of a sudden it would like, remember when he was first in the bathroom, like finding the stuff, like it would just like track to the right with him, kind of like as he's moving, getting like closer to the cupboard and like that kind of stuff, like just like almost like kind of surprising, but I think it just works really well. But it reminded me a lot of like older films that are just straight up like Pan City, like beautiful, like smooth, work. So, but I don't know. I thought I really liked that, like the one take style and then the camera movements.
Yeah, the one takes in this movie were very like they're super impressive when you actually think about them. But as like if you're a regular viewer who doesn't pay attention to this stuff, you also won't be. It's not very showy. It's not like in your face, like, oh, look at how amazing my blocking is here. It's just very natural, which is 10 times better than a showy one take.
Especially the end scene. Like I'm trying to think about there's so many different ways you could people could try to cut that. It's like, they have the wide and it's like cut in a close up real quick and then all kind of crazy stuff. But the fact that they have it so wide for the stabbing and then it comes in closer, like you kind of have that observing kind of feel to it. But then they brings you even closer, especially like towards his face at the end when he's dying. I think it just works. You forget you forget you're really watching a movie because your perspective in terms of position is only like he's just staying constant. So I think that works so well, and you're just sucked in watching and letting your eyes kind of move around themselves and stuff. So really cool.
Is there anything we want to touch on before we wrap this up? All right, let's rate the movie, everyone. Who do we want to start with?
Brayden, why don't we give you or Mason?
Because I had a change of heart. I gotta say, listening to all this, the first time I liked it, but I wasn't that impressed. I was unsatisfied, honestly. But then rewatch and then this conversation, I gotta say, a lot of good points have been made, and I'm gonna have to go with an 8.4 out of 10. I really, really enjoyed it.
Nice.
0.4. Brayden?
Yeah. Despite everything I said here, I'm gonna have to give it a 4 out of 10. Nah, for me, I said earlier, it's one of my favorite movies. Definitely top 6 for me. I'd give it a 10. I love this movie.
Man, I'm dead. No.
You kind of had me at the 4 out of 10. I was like, wait, what?
You spit 50 things that are completely you think are garbage.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, the only 10 out of 10 I've ever given is Gemini Man, and so.
Yes.
Of course.
Mood. You didn't think I actually said 4 out of 10, did you?
What? No.
Okay, good. Just gotta clear.
Yeah, 8.4.
Yes, good.
Oh no, I said 0.4.
Yeah, no, I said 0.4.
Croft?
I say 7.4 out of 10.
Wow.
Can I change my answer to a 10.4?
0.4s only, guys. Let's go.
I'm gonna be a little more reasonable, and I'm gonna give this an 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, all right, Mr. Initiative.
Mr. Ethan.
Trendsetter.
McGarahan.
8.75.
What was that?
8.75s. That's what I'm hitting.
Bet. All right, so the first time I watched this movie, I would have given it an 8. I loved it on the first watch. On this rewatch, I gotta bump that shit up to a 9.4, baby.
Wow. Hey.
What a great fucking movie. It's so good. It's unbelievable. On rewatch, I was so blown away by how much better it was than the first time. 'Cause first time, it is you're getting into it, you don't know where it's going, but when you know where it's going, watching how they set everything up, 9.4.
Yeah. Every time for the first couple times, for the first 4 times I rewatched this film, every time it went up. I'm gonna be honest. The first time I rewatched the film, I liked it, and I was left with a feeling, but I couldn't quite figure out what I liked about the movie so much. So I was conservative with it. I gave it a 7 on my first watch. Rewatching it and reading a bit about it, I was like, all right, this is an 8. I'm gonna bump this up to an 8. then I rewatched it again because I wanted to write an essay on it. I learned more about it. I rewatched it, and just there were certain scenes that stuck out to me more than ever. So I was like, all right, this is a 9. This is one of my favorite movies of the past like decade, definitely of 2018. And then it was sometime in February that I watched it, and I logged on to Letterboxd, and I wrote a very simple review. I just said fuck it, 5 out of 5, and then I pressed send, and it's been I've watched it 2 more times since, and it's been a 10 every time for me since.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like it'll definitely continue to just go up. It's one of those movies that I would knowing that it's like Miles Davis in that like trumpet scene, and knowing about all of these different little things in the movie, I think I'll appreciate it a lot more. And that wasn't generous. My score was not generous, but I would definitely most likely go up knowing everything that I do now.
Yeah, and also something just like based off of what Braden, Mason, Moot, you guys have all said, pretty much it's infinitely better on a rewatch. So that's something I'll check out.
For sure. Guess we gotta choose a movie for the next week. I know that Brendan texted me with a recommendation that he had, and would you like to present it, or shall I?
Moo, you can feel free. Yeah.
All right. So our movie for next week is from David Fincher, 1999's Fight Club.
Ooh, nice.
Good choice.
Movie, and I'll leave it at that because you guys can't know what I really feel about it.
Ooh.
I remember watching this movie in Moo's crib about a year ago. Ow, frick.
All right. Thank you, Braden, for coming on.
My pleasure. It was fun.
It's a good time, and as always, stay safe. You know, I've never said this once, so how am I saying it always? Anyways, stay safe and damn.